Okay, let me see. And it has started. Okay, thanks everybody for joining us wherever you might be in the world. This is a new session in the Data and AI Architecture Group. Today we are welcoming the formidable and fantastic Michelle Gutzait, Microsoft Data Platform MVP, former colleague, former mentor, former everything. And she's going to delight us with a 360-degree introduction to Microsoft Fabric. Hugely popular. We were just discussing before I started the recording. Fabric is everywhere in the Microsoft marketing, the Microsoft materials is going to be a huge focus of R&D for Microsoft. So we're really happy to have Michelle give us this session today. I advise everybody to please, exercise the proper etiquette, keep yourself muted. If you have a question, feel free to put it in the chat. We'll have breaks for questions as we go along. And yeah, just enjoy the session, and we will have the recording posted in a couple of days after we are done today. All right, and without further ado, I'll leave it up to Michelle. Michelle, take it away. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Warner. So hi, everybody. Warner already introduced me. I'm currently working for EPAM. So if you wish to understand what we're doing there, we do everything development and databases and data platforms and analytics. Feel free to go to our site, which is epam.com. And I'm very excited to do this presentation. So Microsoft Fabric, as you know, is a very new tool. Like it just got to be in general availability a few weeks ago. Even though we just Warner and I were just discussing that I have also a friend MVP that already did a few projects with Fabric, but it's pretty new. So I'm in no way I can say that I'm a real expert. I played with this. I did a lot of research. So if you have questions, hopefully I will be able to answer. But if not, we can answer also after the fact. So let's start. Oops, let's start. Okay, so what are we going to do today? So I have a lot to talk about. And so I'm going to do some kind of an overview of Microsoft Fabric, what it is. I'm going to talk about each component of Microsoft Fabric, what's coming in the future. I'm going to talk about the benefits and drawbacks, pros and cons, what's next with and how to start with Microsoft Fabric. I'm going to do a very, very basic demo. It's because this presentation, I have a lot to talk about. You will see a lot of components, a lot of explanations. So the demo is just going to be like, okay, this is the dashboard. Here's how we start. This is what we can do. So this is why I'm saying maybe there will be a part 2, even though I'm using a demo like a demo version of it. I only have around 57 days left, so hopefully I can do a part 2 before that. And then question and answers if you still have. So you can feel free to put in the chat any question, or I will just do some breaks and you can unmute yourself and ask. Let's start. So what do we have today? Today, I call it before Fabric. We have a lot of components. So this is a Microsoft model for analytics with with Synapse. They also have Databricks. So we have the data sources. We have the part of the streaming. We have the pipelines. We have the data lake. We have all those components of Synapse. We have serverless and dedicated SQL pools, and also the Spark, which is a little bit confusing. Once you spin up the Synapse, you have the 3 workspaces, which is the serverless, where you just point your tables, logical tables, to the actual files on the data lake. Then you have the dedicated pool, which is where you load. You can also load data into that and work with T-SQL. Which is not the full T-SQL of SQL Server, but it's a nice base for SQL and T-SQL. And then you have the Spark, and then you have all the other components. You have the Power BI, you have Cosmos, you have other things, and you have the Power BI as for the business users. You can use other tools, and you have the supporting tools, which are Microsoft Purview, and you have for the CI/CD. You have DevOps and so forth. So this this is today it's a little bit complicated because you have to spin up each one of their resources, each one of the services, and then connect them and take care of the security and the endpoints. And if you worked with that architecture, you know what I mean. If you have configured it, if you're just a user of it, you're lucky. But still, you always have to contact admin and get permissions, and sometimes it will take a long time because it's not very straightforward. So what Microsoft is doing and did and doing is something very, very nice. And it's going to bring us to one goal of having everything in a single place and having it very easy to configure and manage. Okay, so that's their vision. Um, if you've been working with Databricks, I can tell you that Fabric is a little bit behind because it's new. Databricks has a little bit more capabilities, but Microsoft Fabric has somehow a different vision than Databricks. And I'm going to talk about that vision today and show you. I'm going to do a little bit comparison to Databricks if you've been working with that, and also to the current Azure services. So the Microsoft vision is to really have everything under the same umbrella. So you have what they call one lake, which is like one repository, one storage for all your data. And it's a SaaS solution, so you don't have to do anything. You don't have to manage infrastructure. You just have to say which capacity you want to work with, and you have everything set up. So once you configure this, you already have all kind of services. And I think that, so from what I'm hearing, Microsoft created that with a vision that starting from the Power BI. So you have a Power BI, let's say that you're a Power BI user, because at the end of this, what matters is probably the business users. So because you do analytics, right? So it's the business unit users. And right now, the way it's configured before Fabric, you have the Power BI, and then I have to go and look for my data. So where do I start? I have my data sources. I need the engineering team to copy my data into the data lake. I have to, to spin up all the services, make sure. So from a business perspective, sometimes it's very hard to actually find the data. I have to go and run after the people that are in charge of moving the data, transforming the data, and so forth. And so the vision of Microsoft is that let's look at the business users, start from Power BI, and then allow the Power BI users to have like this one place where they can find the data. And then yes, we still have the data engineering, we still have all those functions, but everything is going to be found in the same place. So it's basically what they did is they combine all the services together. So once you have the fabric, you can find all your components in one place, and you don't have to actually give permissions to a specific service. If you need to, if you're a business user and you want to use, let's say you're a data engineer and you want to use Power BI, but you also need access to Azure Data Factory, you don't have to manage separate components, so everything is in the same place. Um, and um, and yes, so this is an expansion. So once you have Power BI Premium, you already have Fabric. You just have to enable the service. And we do have, I think it's 90 days, 60 days, no, 60 days trial, 60 or 90, I don't remember. Um, I think it's 60 days trial that Microsoft will not charge you. So if you just want to, yeah, 60, thank you, Padam. So if you want to play with this, you can just start the trial and start playing with this before you need to pay, and you don't have to. If you don't like it, then you just don't buy it. Awesome. So saying all this, so these are the components that we're going to look at. So we have the data lake, the data factory, the Synapse, the Power BI, and the data activator, which is new. And I'm going to talk about two new components as well. And all the components are interacting with each other, like I said, out of the box. Everything it's easier to find. You have one lake that is like centralized data repository for everything, but we still have a security model where you can grant permission. So imagine that you have one lake with all the data, but you still need to make sure that the proper users can see what they need to see. So that means that data will be encrypted. You need security. So, for example, you have PII data or data that needs to be cannot be seen by specific users. So you still have those capabilities, and it's just one place where you're managing all your security and who can see what. So that's very nice because you don't have to go and look for your data. Whatever you are allowed to see, you will see. Okay, so let's go and talk about each component. So one lake, like I said, it's one repository for the entire organization for collaboration. And even we will see later when I talk about workspaces, you can actually segregate data between, let's say, departments or whatever you need to segregate data for. But it's a one lake, so it's one repository where you can have like different like separate places where you place the data with different security. So the idea is to consolidate the data and to have one source of truth for your data. Now, if you're already working with data, you probably know that this is easier said than done. We still need, even though it's like the concept is very nice, we still need to be able to architect this in a way that we're not just throwing data and having I would call it a data swamp where you have a lot of data and you don't know where you place what and who can access what. So you still have to make sure that you have processes and policies in place where you well architected your one lake, but the concept is there. So it's built over the Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2, and it can support obviously the structured and unstructured data. And you manage this centrally, so you store it, access, and process it centrally, and also security. You store all the tabular data in Delta Parquet format, and I'm going to talk about the Delta format later. And the power of the data files, the main reason why is because it allows you to have ACID transactions on the files. I'm going to talk about the ACID transactions. It means that it's like a database where you can have a transaction on files. You can roll back a transaction and you can have updates, inserts, and deletes. The main tip that I can give here is because we're working with files, it's not like an RDBMS. So you're not going to use this platform instead of your RDBMS. Your RDBMS is going to be a source where you copy the data of that source into the lake, but you can still do, like, if you're moving data in deltas, you can still do like transactions on the files. And this means that we don't need you don't need a database, and you don't need to move data. So basically, you copy the data from your sources, you have one place, and then you update your lake. What else? So each one of the tools is auto-organizes the folders by the different components. So the architecture of the one lake, even though you can you can manage this as well, but each component will have its own separate folders, and the way that things are organized, it's a SaaS solution. And it does not matter for the data which service or tool save the data. You can use that data from the other tools, obviously. It simplifies the data workflows. It's like one place where you have your probably raw data, and then you have the transformations. You have a dictionary on top of it, and you know where to find your data and how the data was transformed. I'm going to talk about that as well. So also data integrity and accessibility. So it's more responsive because you have you don't have like different data silos, so you don't have to go and look for your data. You have one place, and if you have access to that data, if you're allowed to see that data, you will be able to do that. We also have the ability to do data compression. And for compatibility reasons, the APIs are the same APIs for the Azure Data Lake storage. So if you have like applications that are using the data lake storage, they are going still to work. Um, that, for example, includes Databricks as well. So we're going to see that. Microsoft also, so I don't know if you have it, if you've worked with OneDrive, but look at it as OneDrive. So Microsoft has added a file explorer for Windows, just like OneDrive, and it means that you can open your OneLake as and see the folders and see the the data that you can see as files. So you can let's say that now you would like to upload a CSV file, you can do that because you have the that Explorer. And Microsoft also introduced the idea of shortcuts. Shortcuts means if you've been working with Databricks, it's the same as the mounts. So what you do is that you have external locations and you can just have shortcuts. You define shortcuts. So let's say that you're using, for now we only have the capability to integrate S3, the Amazon S3. So you can, or it could be like a blob storage on Azure, so you can have shortcuts and you don't actually have to move data. And Microsoft is working very hard. Like I said, this is a very new tool, so they're adding now additional storage, so GCP. So that's coming. Okay, and so you really don't have to move data. So imagine from your Power BI, you can connect to 3 clouds and do queries, and you don't actually have to move any data. So that's really incredible. The idea is incredible, and it's so it's not only the one lake where you have the data. The data can sit everywhere. This is the idea. Let's move on. And after this slide, I will open the mic for questions. So it's providing also like out of the box things like indexing, handling sensitive data, lineage. We have Purview integration for the lineage, so you can basically see from the data source all the way to the Power BI how your data is being transformed. This is amazing. It allows you to scan for PII data and try to detect the PII data. And obviously, you will probably need to, you can add also that manually. So PII data, the users that are not allowed will not be able to see the PII data. It allows sharing. So let's say that now I'm uploading my file and I would like Warner to be able to to create reports with the file that I just uploaded. I have this ability to share. And also Purview, the integration with Purview allows you to have governance and compliance like it is today with, if you've been working with Purview. And the the engines of Fabric are really have been adjusted to be optimized to work with the Delta format. So you have the Spark engine within Fabric, you have the T-SQL engine, and you have the K-SQL for unstructured data and IoT. So you do have those capabilities. And from performance perspective, yeah, when you create when you spin up the fabric, you decide which compute level you would like to work with. It starts. Well, I didn't want to talk about pricing, but it starts with F2, which is around $300 US per month, and you can go all the way to 10,000 US per month to get more capacity. So it really depends on your workload, and you can scale up as well if you want. And you can also stop the Fabric service if you want, and you can stop it you can stop it on a regular basis. So let's say that you know that your users are going to only work at until 4 p.m. You can actually stop it 4 p.m. until let's say 8 a.m. and stuff like that. So you still have that. So I said after the previous, let's talk about this one, and then you can ask questions. So the basic idea is that you can access the data from anywhere using any tool that you like. You like T-SQL or SQL, go ahead. You like Spark, ELT, ETL. So for example, Data Factory or any other third-party tool. Analysis services, it's the new concept for for the data warehouse. Power BI notebooks and so forth. So you have everything centralized and you can access it from anywhere that you wish. Now I'm going to park here like I promised, and let's see if you have questions. Okay, feel free to either unmute or send me questions to the chat if you feel more comfortable. And I'm assuming no questions so far. Okay.
Yeah, I do
Oh,
have one.
oh, great.
I know we are recording the session here, so
Mm-hmm.
will it be shared across and also this PPT as well, or is it just for you?
No, I will share the PPTs, no problem.
Okay, okay, because it will be easy for later to check once again. So yeah, that's the
Okay.
thing.
Yes, no problem. And I have
Thank
another
you.
question. Can you adjust, can you just use it on demand to save money? Um, so because you have the ability to stop and start, um, it's not, I don't think Microsoft, okay, less than 300. Yes, so 300 is if you want to, um, if you want to use it all the time, I think. So I know that Databricks, for example, you can say, okay, after if you I don't use it for 30 minutes, then it goes down, the cluster goes down, and then you save money. I do not think that Microsoft did that yet, but you do
No, it's
have.
not automatic yet, but
It's not automatic, but
you can pause the capacity if you want. But then
exactly.
not but
So
then everything stops, right? Because it's one
yes,
capacity for everything. So you don't have
yes.
it like you can't just pick like, oh, I'm gonna stop the warehouse, but I'm gonna keep doing pipelines, right? Like it's like one big switch for now. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So, but again, it's very young. So um, we probably, as a market, as a community, we have some say. So we can probably contact our Microsoft representatives and ask for something. And if they have the same ask for multiple customers, they probably will work on that one. And my gut feeling is that they're going to introduce the same capabilities that their competitors have as well, right? Okay, let's see. Is Circuit Connect data functionality similar to Express Route connectivity for data access? Um, I'm not sure. So basically, you do have to have some network configuration. I don't I think I've heard something about VPN to VPN, but I'm not sure. But that's a very good question. So I don't think that you need express route, but I'm not sure. So this is a good question to research. Werner, do you know the answer? I put you on the spot. Sorry.
Shortcut connect data functionality similar to Express
To
Route
express route.
connectivity for data
Yeah,
access.
I think it's VPN to
Well, it's
VPN.
the thing is Express Route is like to connect to your own premises with a private circuit to Azure,
Hmm.
right? So the shortcut really what it does is it it doesn't go into like any sort of like private connectivity or anything, right? Fabric is deployed and managed more like a SaaS product,
Yeah, I
right?
think it's using API to connect to S3 for now. I think it's like you just have to enter your credentials because it's another cloud, right? So I think it's that.
Yeah, if it's for like an S3 shortcut, yeah, you have to like put in some kind of like credential thing. If it is for like a an
Hmm.
actual Fabric native shortcut, I think it's
Hmm.
all Azure Active Directory Entra ID is what they
Yes.
call it today, right?
Yes.
So the security is managed that way, but it's not about like having like a private tunnel, kind of like how ExpressRoute is, right?
Yes, I'm almost sure that the connectivity to on-prem is still the same. So it's either VPN to VPN or ExpressRoute. ExpressRoute will be faster. So that I think did not change. Make sense? Okay, any other question? If not, I will proceed. How does Fabric Share connect to on-premise data? So no, so the shortcuts for now are to other cloud storages, as far as I know. Okay, so right now we have only S3, and I know that Microsoft is working on connecting to GCP.
Yeah, or just native Fabric One Lake shortcuts, right? Like
Yes, to other,
shortcuts to
yes,
itself. Yeah.
to other zones, or yeah. Okay. Okay, let me continue. Okay, feature that you think differentiates Fabric when compared to Databricks or Snowflake. I'm going to talk about the, okay, let's just move on with this and then you can decide. At the end, I have some pros and cons, but remember, this is a very young product. And so let's go through everything and then we can decide which one is the feature that highlights for you. Okay, so that's a good question, but I don't know how to answer this on the top of my head. Okay, so I'm continuing. So one lakes, so because we have only one lake and one place for the data, Microsoft allows us to create workspaces. So the workspaces, you can have multiple workspaces. So imagine that you have different departments and you want the data separated between departments, or let's say that I'm going to talk about the medallion architecture. So that also, so you have the ability to basically separate data inside the one lake. Okay, so you can have multiple workspaces under the same Azure tenant. And it allows you to have like different ownership and distribution sharing and access policies for each one of the workspaces. Okay, so one user, for example, can access multiple workspaces or just one workspace, but this gives you the isolation of data that you need. And on the data lake, if you have experience with the data lake, so the workspace will appear as a container, and the different data items will appear as folders. So I have one slide down the list showing how it works. Okay, and so other things. So because they kept the APIs, for example, Databricks can use their DFS API. So DFS is like their shortcuts methodology, so they can connect to that via the Azure Databricks, okay, or other Databricks, and also Azure HD Insight can still connect to that. And I'm sure that Microsoft is working on additional ones. I don't know about Snowflake. Can you have overlapping Arch? An example, we have Workspace C with finance and KPI stores. So you mean data? I don't understand the question exactly, but do you mean like access to multiple, well, like from different tenant? Um, from different tenant, probably with shortcuts. Okay, but I haven't tried it. But it should work, right? With different tenants, you just have to give some permissions. Yeah, I don't have the answer, but I'm just imagining that it will be like that with shortcuts. Okay. Okay, one security. So we have one single place where you define the security for your one lake, and you can do data sharing. So imagine that right now the way it works, like it's very hard to the before Fabric, it's very hard to give permissions to the different services and the different users on your data lake. So here you have like one place. It's like, imagine it's like a database, right? So that you can give permissions in one single place. Now, each user can have their own workspace in the One Lake, and this is by default, and I will show you in the demo. So it's like OneDrive. So in OneDrive, you have like your own workspace and you can share it with others. And you also have some places where it's shared. The OneDrive is a little bit differently because by default you don't have like the share. It's like you have your own space and then you share it with others. But I think that Teams is using you can use the OneDrive and then it's shared between others. So you do have this ability, and so all the components are using the One Lake, so there's no need for additional, security configurations or anything else. Okay, moving on, Azure Data Factory. So if you're a data engineer or you've been dealing with ELT and ETL and all kind of integrations, you probably have experience with data with the pipelines, or even if you work with Synapse Analytics, you also have the ability to do pipelines and transform the data. So it's working the same, but I can tell you that because Microsoft did not actually take the existing data factory, I think they implemented something new because there are still some capabilities that are not there. And I'm going to give you a solution in the next slide. What happens, for example, if I cannot do something? Okay, so there's a workaround. So you can transfer data either by using Azure Data Factory. So you have like the pipelines that you can use, or with the Power Query. So if you're a Power BI user, you know the Power Query where you can manipulate the data. So we will talk about direct query later. Okay, so the ADF can orchestrate and automate data pipelines, while the Power Query, you're probably going to do this directly. And so it's the same functionality for ADF, right? So it's copying data, moving data, transforming data. And so the Power Query, so I would say that the ADF, even though it's a low code, you can still code, but it's a low code tool. It allows you to do a lot of transformations, and the Power Query is mostly for like the business users, so they can just query the data and mold the data as they need from that tool that looks like Excel, right? And so it's a very powerful tool because sometimes like the ADF pipelines or the Synapse pipelines. So we don't have the Synapse pipelines here. It's going to be ADF in Fabric. So sometimes you don't get the refining of the data as you wish. So this is why you have the Power Query in Power BI. So that functionality is the same thing. And so it gives you like those two tools allow you to ingest, transform, and prepare the data for your analytics. So you don't have to go and run and find your data and who can transform this for me and so forth. Okay, so that's like part of the big centralized monster that we're talking about. So like I said, Fabric is not mature enough in some aspects because Microsoft is still working on integrating some of the capabilities. So one of the workarounds, or the workaround for me, is having like some kind of a landing zone. So landing zone for me would be like a place in the data lake storage where you use Data Factory, the old existing Data Factory, to copy data from the data sources. So if, for example, you find that something cannot be done right now with ADF of Fabric, you can always leverage the Azure Data Factory and prepare the data the way you wish into, I would call it a landing zone, and then use that landing zone from Fabric with a shortcut and do whatever you want with the data. So that's a little workaround until we have all the functionality that we're looking for. Okay, any questions so far? One store can exist in different workspace. What do you mean by that? A workspace can contain a lot of data. So you can have multiple workspaces with different types of data and different permissions. So
I think
I
the
don't.
question was like, if you create like a lake house, can you then share that lake house across workspaces?
Okay, lakehouse is a different thing. Oh, you mean one lake? Okay, lakehouse is a different concept. I'm going to talk about this shortly.
That
So
one
what?
lake is shared, right, between all the workspaces in the
Yes.
fabric, right?
So
Yeah.
so it works like this. It's one lake, and underneath you have the workspaces. So if you work with databases, let's say example from SQL Server, you have a database, and then you have schemas, okay, and then you give permissions to a schema. Some kind of a logical explanation. Make sense? Okay, let's move on. So Synapse Data Warehouse is decoupled from between the compute and the storage. So you don't have to upload the data. It's still it's working with the one lake. Um, it has the SQL capabilities, but it's a distributed engine. So it's much faster in terms of the scaling the compute. It so what Microsoft did, if you worked with Synapse Analytics, you know that you had the serverless and you had the dedicated pool. So they merged both of them into singular capability, and that warehouse is working over Delta files right now. So it's managed by the tool. You don't have to start managing that. Um, so it's very efficient, and it can scale up based on the computing that you need. So it can adapt to varying workloads. So if you work with Synapse Analytics, you know that you can can scale the resources, right, and get the better performance. And so this is really meant for data at scale. So let's say if you have an implementation where you're analyzing a very small data set, you may not need, you may need like a smaller agents, a smaller capacity. Um, so you decide on the capacity based on your workload. Okay, and it can scale up. Um, so the last one is very important. So basically, the in from Power BI, um, if you worked with Power BI, you know that usually you need to import the data in order to get better performance. But in Fabric, um, Fabric allows you to either import the data or work with direct queries so directly on the data. So the performance, so I think Power BI also has direct queries right now, but the performance of those is not great. So Microsoft has improved, or they say that they improved. I did not play with that one, but they say that they improved the performance because it's under the same fabric. Make sense?
It has a lake. It has a name too. What is it called? I think they call it Direct Lake or something like that.
From Power BI, yeah, probably.
Yeah, yeah. So there's
I did
direct
not play with
query, which
this.
is what they had before, and now there's a new mode. If you connect Power BI to Fabric, it's
Hmm.
called like Direct Lake or something like that. Yeah, they gave it a
Yes.
name. Yeah.
Yes. So did you play with the performance? Because me, I have very bad experience with direct query in Power BI.
No,
Yeah.
no, I
So
haven't compared it, but I've heard the same thing. The people say it's supposed to be a lot faster doing Direct Lake than doing Direct Query.
yes, good, good. So I have to change that slide to direct link. Okay. What about the data engineering? So so we have the Spark. So if you look at this one is more is like SQL, right? More SQL. But if you want to do like Spark transformations, so you work with Spark, so you're coding, it has this ability, and you can so you have the Spark platform like you have in Databricks if you have experience with Databricks. So you have notebooks where that you can work with, And so you can use it. It's the same if you worked with Databricks. It's the same. So you create notebooks and then you can run them either from Azure Data Factory or you know, or by themselves. I don't know. I don't know if you can actually trigger them. I didn't try that, but yeah, I'm using Azure Data Factory to trigger the notebooks. And so it's the Spark engine is very powerful in really managing a lot of data. So it scales up for big chunks of data, and it makes your job very easier because you can basically code, right? Because if you've been working with Azure Data Factory before Fabric, um, you need to leverage you know, Databricks for those things, and now it's everything, it's inside Fabric. And I hope I'm not saying stupidities. um, I think you cannot just have notebooks in Azure Data Factory. I didn't do that. I didn't do it. So so basically it gives you, as a data engineer, it gives you the flexibility to do like any data transformations that you need, because it's basically coding. Um, so data cleansing and everything. So with Azure Data Factory, you do have like no coding functionality, but here this is enriching the capabilities of Azure Data Factory to have like the ability to code more. Make sense? Okay, questions? Okay, I'll move on. I will also read the questions at the end. So I will see. Okay, so Synapse Data Science is new. I did not play with this. This is not. I'm a data platform MVP. An architect, so I don't play a lot with machine learning or at all. So you do have this capability inside Fabric. You can have machine learning models in your with your Power BI. You can do all those you know, decision making capabilities that you have in Power BI. So that's really nice to have. Let's talk about the real-time analytics. So Microsoft has also added like the real-time ingestion of data into the Fabric. So basically, you can analyze the data as it arrives. You can handle a lot of data that is coming from streaming, and you get with the Synapse Studio, you can actually use it whoever you are. You can leverage that studio to ingest, prepare, and you know, and report or analyze the real-time data that is coming. So this is very nice because you know, you don't have to wait for anything. You don't need to import data into the Power BI. You don't need to copy any data. You can just analyze the data as it comes. So this is a very powerful you know, powerful environment where you can do that. And this one has the cost efficiency, so you can scale resources as well as you need for your analytics. And with the pay-as-you-go model, you can, you know, you can actually minimize costs by when you have low activity. So I can imagine, I didn't check, but I can imagine that this subservice can go down if you're not, or you pay as you go. So that means that if you're not utilizing, you will not pay for the service. Okay. And we have the Power BI, which you probably already using. So if you're a Power BI user, you already know the interface. It's just that what has been added is underneath what you have, and gives you powerful insights into your data. You don't have to go and look for your data, and you know, it's in one place. And so you don't need to actually manage permissions from to the data sources, because you're not necessarily connecting to data sources. You are connecting to the one lake. So the whole complexity for you to find, because I've seen people using Power BI, they have to go and look for the data sources. Let's say that you have an Oracle database where you have your clients, and you have a SQL Server database when you have your customers from two different systems, and then you have to go and check what is what. Sometimes you need to either, luckily somebody provided you views, or you have to, if it's a third-party tool, you will see tables with some weird names. So you don't actually need to have that anymore. We just have to make sure that all the data is being copied into the data lake and being transformed. So potentially even today, before Fabric, you're already doing this. So you're using Azure Data Lake or Synapse pipelines to go to the data sources and bringing into your data lake. But Power BI also has the ability to connect to the data sources directly. So Microsoft is trying to make sure to separate, because you can use Power BI basically on the OLTP environments, right? But now we're talking about the analytics. So within the analytics platform, it's better if you only touch your data that is already being prepared for you in the one lake. So I see we have a question. As far as I know, Azure Synapse is a costlier option for data warehouse. What about the cost in Fabric Synapse? So basically, when you spin up, if you look, okay, you can just use the trial and spin up a Fabric service. So when you create the Fabric service, the SSAS solution, you will see that the costs are between 300 for F2, around, it's 2 something US, I think, to 10,000. So you get all of this for that amount per month, and you can manage the resources. And so if you don't want to pay more than, let's say, 5,000 per month, you can do that, right? You can have, by choosing the right compute level. So I did not compare between Azure Synapse and this, but I know that, for example, sometimes with those services, you get you get the bill and you say, oh, what the heck? Like, why did I get this type of bill, right? And then you have to go back and look at the performance and the scaling and see why you pay that. So with Fabric, as far as I understand, you do have, you decide on your compute layer, and this is what you're paying per month. Okay, I hope I answered the question, and I hope I said it properly. I did not look at the prices as much. When I created the Fabric, the Fabric service, I saw that you can create you can choose the compute layer. And the data activator. So the data activator is something new, and it's so what it does, it allows business users to create events on the data and from when the event happens, to do something with the event. Okay, so it's no code. They don't need to chase development teams or IT to have that. They just say, just create those events, no coding. So it's like a tool where you create. I will explain in the next slide. And then you get either notifications or something can happen. So if that happens, this needs to happen. So let's look at some use cases. So for example, and remember, we're talking about business users. So alert store manager when items need reordering. Imagine how strong this is. So you have your one lake, and you decide what to do in case the data is blah. Or for example, RUD ads when sales decline, email unsatisfied customer, and so forth. So the way it works is that you have objects. So what are my monitored business objects? Okay, so it can be tangible or non-tangible. So for example, it can be customer items and ads. It can be any, like you have different types of objects. And then you say, okay, the events is the state of the object. So if the state of the object is something, then you trigger, okay? So the condition to detect and the properties. So this allows you to reuse the same logic across multiple triggers. Okay, so I have not played with that tool, but it sounds promising, right? And you know, I cannot give you my opinion on that tool until I play with this. So next time, but it sounds like a very powerful tool. So to summarize everything that I said so far is that we have one place for the data, and each component can connect from on its own to the same data. Okay. Let's talk about the lake house. So first, I'm going to talk about the Delta Lake architecture by Databricks. So Databricks basically. Somebody has a question? Just mute yourself, please. Okay. So the Databricks has set the I would say the the architecture for the Delta Lake. Delta Lake is being owned by Databricks, and they set up like the process of the architecture for the medallion architecture for analytics. So the medallion architecture is composed by. So I'm not talking about the data. You have incoming data by streaming or batch, but the medallion architecture is this one. So the medallion architecture is just an architecture. You don't have to follow it if you don't want, really depending on your implementation. But the basics for analytics is usually you have the raw data. Okay, so we call it the bronze layer or the ingestion tables layer or the ingestion layer, where you just take the data from the data sources. Maybe you manipulate just a little. For example, you need to adjust data types or something like that, or convert nulls to spaces and stuff like that. But basically, you have something that looks like the raw data from the data sources. Then you will have a process here, right? But on the storage layer, you will have the silver or refined table. So my example from Oracle customers table and SQL Server clients table, and you want to merge between them to have one row per client, for example. So you just massage the data so that it will be cleaned, and you also have the ability to say, okay, what do I do with the non-clean data, the data that I cannot merge, for example, or problematic data. And you can have what it's called data steward that will look at that data and say, okay, we need to modify those transformations because we just got a client ID that we don't know and stuff like that. So this is where you do it in the silver layer. And then at the end, you have the gold layer where this is for the analytics. So it's probably going to have the form of fact tables and dimension tables so the business can understand. So the tables from the data source, a table from the data source can be called X19. It will be understood as the client table. Here you're going to have like the client table, and here you're going to be like fact table and dimension table based on that. So the business users do not have to understand the data sources and how the things have been named with different naming conventions from the data sources. They have their own view of the data. If a client is called client on the business layer, then this is what they're going to see here. Okay. So, and the Delta Lake, like I said, it's an acid architecture. So it has atomicity, consistency, isolation, and durability like we have in a database. It's an open data format. So anyone that is using the Delta Lake can use that on their platform. And it's based on Parquet files. It has logs and indexes around the Parquet files so that the ACID transactions can be done. So ACID transactions meaning delete, update, insert, and merge, right? Insert is by adding files, but then you can modify the data. And in the Delta Lake, there's oops, I forgot this. This is from Databricks. So yeah, so this comes from Databricks. Databricks allows you to have like, and this is part of the Delta Lake. So when I say Databricks, it's because they own the Delta Lake. So you can either enforce, so imagine that you have a data source. When you're adding a column, what will happen in the analytics system? So the Delta Lake allows you to either say, okay, this table, I want to enforce the schema. So if you're adding a column, it will fail, okay? Or alternatively, you can say, okay, I would, if you're adding a column or deleting a column, I will still want the data not to change. So Delta Lake knows how to handle those situations, okay? So this is the medallion, but let's see how this integrates into our One Lake. So when we're talking about, so there's a lot of confusion about data lake, One Lake, lakehouse. So I just wanted to, it was for me too, because I was like, what the heck is the lakehouse? So the lakehouse is that architecture. We call it lakehouse. So it's the bronze, silver, and gold that I just said, like this is the medallion architecture, okay? And you can implement this in different ways, right? You don't have to implement it as folders. You can implement it differently. So this is from Microsoft, okay? So this is a lakehouse. And if you remember, we have workspaces. So basically you can have a medallion architecture or a lakehouse inside each workspace. You can have multiple lakehouses inside workspace. So it's really about architecting your environment. So if you go here, I posted here the link. Microsoft, I changed a little bit the syntax because the way that Microsoft has it here, it's not really clear. So basically, you can architect the way you need. So either you create the bronze, silver, and gold on the same lakehouse on the in the data lake, in the One Lake, and then you can use the SQL analytics endpoint, the Synapse, the analytics, the data warehouse, to to sorry, not the data warehouse, to the SQL analytics endpoint that is only going to point to the files or the folders to read those data. If we go back to Synapse, those are like external tables. So in Synapse, you create an external table directly to a folder or to a file, which is Parquet, right, or Delta Lake, and you can read the data as it if it was with SQL, as it if it was a table, a real table, but it's actually working with files. So you can either do that, even also for the gold layer, but I would recommend if well, really depending on, you know, like on your implementation and your business users and what you're expecting. But usually what I've seen is that the bronze and silver layers are on the One Lake as files, and then the gold layer is like in a data warehouse. So it's like uh, being being queried from a data warehouse endpoint. Okay. And like I said before, you can create multiple lakehouses in a single workspace, or one lakehouse per workspace, which is the recommended one by Microsoft. It's really depending on your architecture and your environment, how you're going to architect that. I just wanted to touch the Medallion and Delta Lake architecture here. So let me see if you have any questions. Let me know if you have questions. And I'm on the top of the hour. So let's just run quickly. So what's coming, I talk a little bit about this. So other storage type like Google Cloud Storage, integration with the Copilot, okay? And if you want to know the updates, this is an example of November 2023 updates, and you can just go to Microsoft, go here, and you can find the latest updates. You know, so this is an example what you will see in the November 2023 updates. So if you start working with Fabric, you will probably want to monitor this often. And just quickly about the benefits and drawbacks. So this is an SAS solution. You don't have to have separate services. centralized data, centralized government, data lineage and security. Fabric service can be stopped for cost saving, but it's going to stop everything. It's not like the other services that you can, some of the services you can just stop the service. Here you're stopping everything. It's compatible with existing services like Purview. It's not very pricey, in my opinion, because for enterprise organizations, $300 per month, even for an SME, is not much, and 10K for a big organization, it's not going to be much. But it's still evolving, and I put this as a benefit and also a drawback because Microsoft is listening to their customer. So the fact that it's still evolving, it could be a drawback and also a benefit. And we need to make sure, like I said before, that it doesn't become a swamp. We have to make sure that we organize and architect our environment properly so that we know where the data is and we can manage it properly. One of the biggest drawbacks, and it's by design, that Microsoft requires a domain for Fabric. So basically, you cannot use your Gmail or Hotmail or something like that for when you want to work with Fabric. So there are two workarounds. Either if you're working at the company, you can ask them and use their Azure for even for the trial. This is what I did. Or you can just buy a domain for 99 cents and pay a little bit more to have email address and just work with that. And you need to configure enter on there. So make sure that when the trial is over, you just scrap it, because otherwise you will start paying the monthly payment. So implementing the medallion architecture on Azure is not straightforward. It really requires a proper design, and you need to make sure that you have like an architect when you start to make sure that you design it properly for your needs. So it's not as mature as Databricks, and it does not have all the capabilities of ADF and Synapse yet. So there's some kind of comparison between from Microsoft between Fabric ADF and ADF, the previous ADF. And I would say, okay, so it could be pricey for SMEs if you think that 300 per month is too much. So those are from my point the benefits and drawback. It's only my opinion. You may find more. I will be happy to hear from you. And what's next? If you already have Power BI, you can just enable for the Fabric for the tenant. And you may need to add capacity later or capacity to your tenant as well. So it comes with 60, yeah, I wrote it down, 60 days trial, and it can be paused. And there are like, if you want to start learning it, so both on YouTube and on the Microsoft Learn, you have a lot of information. You have a lot of videos explaining what it is, how to start with. So it's really easy to follow if you just want to start playing with this. Just go to their tutorials, and the other companies have uploaded very nice videos into the in YouTube and stuff like that. So it's pretty easy to start with, especially if you already have experience with Azure. And let's go very quickly, Warner. I know that I'm 4 minutes late. Can I just use like 4 minutes for the demo?
Oh, I don't mind. It's up to you. It's recording anyway, so if you have the time, go ahead. It'll be in the recording. Even if people have to drop off, they can catch up on the recording after.
Okay, so let me just share my other screen. Share. So my demo is not very not very fancy. When you go to app fabricmicrosoft.com, and you in this case I'm using the EPAM one, you can see everything that has been shared with you, and this is like it's very close to the current Power BI. Just give me a second. Okay, so you see I have my workspace. It's like the OneDrive, right? And you have the workspaces that have been shared with me. And if I click here in the bottom, you will see that I can basically go to each one of the components that we've seen. So if I click, for example, on Data Factory, you will see that I can create new pipelines. Okay, So I created my demo pipelines for another presentation, and you can learn data factory. You can create whatever you want as you did with the previous ADF. So this is pretty easy, pretty nice. You have the real-time analysis, the data warehouse, the data science, and the data activator, and the Power BI. So it's pretty easy to navigate between them and start working with them. Like I said, my workspace, and you have you can see the one space. Okay, so the one lake. So you can see basically things that have been shared with you and your own. So I'm going to stop sharing this because we don't have a lot of time. And I'm going to go back to, just give me a second. I lost you. And I'm going to share back my presentation. So it's pretty straightforward. Let me just check my presentation. This one. Okay. So very, very quick demo just to show you how to start. And thank you very much. And this is time for additional questions if you have. Hopefully it will be. Okay, I get stuck when I sign up for the trial because my tenant is in US Central. Where could I find guidance to find a way around this? So what do you see? I think US Central, you can do it. Are you trying to use your personal email, or is it in a domain? So if it's a domain, it should work. If you think that US Central is not the right location, try. I was using, I think, Canada Central, and it worked for me. So just for the trial, you can use any other location. I don't think it matters. Does that? It's a custom domain. I don't know. We will have to see. Okay. For me, it worked like right away. I had no problems. Anything else, guys? And again, any question that you're thinking about after, I'm basically learning from your questions. So I have to, when I have a question, I have to, it forces me to investigate for me too. So feel free to send me an email if you have any additional questions. Okay. If no other question, then thank you very much. Werner, would you like to uh, chime in?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. Thank you, Michelle. As always, it's a pleasure to host you. Anytime you want to come back to the group, just send me an email and we will get you on the schedule again. For everybody else, thank you so much for joining. We will put the recording on the YouTube channel. And have a great rest of your day. We'll check out the schedule. We have more sessions coming as well in the next couple of months. And until next time, just bye-bye. Thank you again.
Although Werner, somebody is asking
Oh,
about the
okay.
presentation. Somebody is asking how they can get the presentation. I will send it to you, and then you can send
Yeah,
it
don't worry.
to
Send
the
it to me
meetup.
and I can post it on the meetup. Cool.
Okay, and my email addresses are here. I saw the question.
Perfect. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Michelle, again.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.